Welcome back to your nightmares, my children. This is Mr. Midnight speaking, and welcome you all to my humble abode. Today, I'll be sharing with you three scary stories from the cult. Cults are fun and games, so why don't you join my little cult? Let's begin, but before we do, make sure you like and subscribe, because if you do not, I will devour you. So now buckle up and always remember the darkness always follows. I will now leave you with my narrator, so enjoy.
Creepy cult people in a motorhome. Some years ago, me and my friends went for a drive into a disused quarry, a now national park here in the UK. We spent a fair amount of time there throughout our teenage years. Being the teenage we were, we would find ways of entertaining ourselves, sometimes at the expense of others. Nothing too sinister, but being your usual kids that had nothing more to do. One of our favorite pastimes would be to turn off our headlights and park up discreetly so no other cars could see us. A lot of people would park up there and smoke weed, out of sight of the police. We would hide the car in the dark, and once we saw someone pull up to have a quiet smoke, we pretended to be the police. I flash a blue light and play a siren as loud as possible on our sub. We found it funny, okay. Obviously, this would result in the people in the car panicking and try to hide their weed or drive off as fast as possible. Funnily enough, we ended up making several friends from doing this once they realized it was a joke. Over the years, pretty much every night that we were up there, we would see a motorhome parked up in the same spot. We never paid them any mind because you could never see inside, and it always seemed dormant and dark. The motorhome was clearly a very dated model and pretty dirty. The only thing other than it looking slightly out of place was that it had the biggest antenna on the top. Like, I've never seen one so big. One night, it was extremely quiet up in the quarry, and we were about to go home because there wasn't really anything to do. Or should I say, no one to terrorize. One of our friends then asked why we hadn't given any grief to the people in the motorhome. We explained the above. It never seemed like there was anyone home. After some time, we decided that we'd bang on the doors and try to shake the vehicle and scream, "Earthquake!" again. Please bear in mind, we were very bored, stupid teenagers. All of us got out of the car as quietly as we could and sneaked all around the dirty motorhome. We counted to three, trying to hide our giggles, and began our plan. We shook and banged and shouted "Earthquake" at the top of our lungs. After about 30 seconds, no response. We all looked at one another. There was clearly no one home, and it felt completely anticlimactic. We began to walk back to the car, which wasn't too much of a distance away, when the motorhome door opened at a pretty relaxed pace. We all heard the creak of the door and spun around to see what it was. We all stood, frozen at what we were seeing. People began to pile out of the motorhome, not quickly and not slowly, but like nothing had happened. That was strange enough, but the part that made our blood turn cold was the fact that they were all wearing masks. Black masks. They were covered in matching black cloaks, and there must have been around 8 to 9 of them. It's safe to say we booked it. We ran like we never ran before, straight back to the car and jumped in, starting up the engine and speeding off out of the quarry. 3 of us looked back to see if they were following, and they weren't. They were just standing there, looking in our direction. The door to the motorhome was still open, and we could see that it was lit by candlelight, and candlelight alone. No wonder we could never see any light coming from the windows at night. Obviously, there could have been an explanation for this. Like maybe they were playing a trick on us because we used to play tricks on everyone else in the car park. But either way, it was terrifying. Creepy cult people, let's not meet again. Attempted brainwashing by a possible cult. A little background. I am 22. The people in this story are somewhere in their late 20s and early 30s. But they constantly change their ages, last names and jobs when I asked. My friend was 28. So this has mostly ended, but this was ongoing for about half a year. Due to a shitty life situation, I had a terrible breakup with the guy I had been living with, and I was really raw. So I moved out into an apartment with my friend, who was really cool about it, just never home. She always had guests though, and they were incredibly, deeply, terrible and weird. The first thing her boyfriend said to me after meeting him was that I should never trust anyone, especially him. Okay, weird. But then he started hitting on me, and my friend sort of watched in a weird way, as if she was jealous. But I kinda got this weird feeling she wasn't. He was really oddly charismatic, and he was the type to get away with saying anything. My friend was the quiet, confident type, and she'd flirt with me on occasion too. It was weird, but I figured they were poly or something. They came on strong, but I'm always the accepting type, so I didn't care. A little over a month in, I couldn't move out, and we really started to get into trouble. He started threatening me and literally following me everywhere, including the bathroom. I'm starting to really freak out, so my friend agrees to stay home. By then, she's home almost all of the time. My friend then kind of fake rants about him to me, and she invites a completely new friend I've never met to help us. They do this weird thing where they comfort me in front of him. He just sits in the corner as they hug me and tell me how awful he is and how great I am. I keep asking them to make him leave, and they keep giving me excuses that seem really off. I also didn't have a job, and I wasn't on the lease, yet the boyfriend and her friend were, but they didn't live there. Something I hated was that they were always charmingly dishonest. They seemed like they were rarely busy, and if I asked for personal details, they kept changing the story. Her boyfriend said he was a doctor, a judge, a cop, an actor, and a lawyer at some point. My friend's friend seemed more like his friend, and would always be his co-worker, assistant, or occasionally boss when they changed the story. My friend had rich family to rely on, so I'm pretty sure she quit her regular job. But she's often make up a story about their jobs too. When they leave, they never say where, and they always keep their phones hidden. By 3 months, the boyfriend and her friend are there every day. My friend is there sometimes, but she just makes it seem like I've offended her badly. I'm still unable to find work then, so I feel like pretty bad. Still, her boyfriend and her friend were constantly asking me questions, having me explain everything, and being oddly rude but in very sweet ways. I'm sorry to say, I fell for a lot of it. They even decided to give me 2 nicknames, Beautiful and Gullible. They tell really weird pointless lies. They were with me 24/7, all day, every day. If I looked at my phone, they did too. If I went to the shower, they kept opening the door. No locks. I really don't know why. Both of them, they're still really nice and telling me how great I am. And they all even tell me they love me at some point. They started saying that they were all angels Everyone tried to be romantic with me, and everyone started to feel kind, yet like authority figures. They're all really great talkers, not to mention older than me. 4 months in, I've gotten used to the lack of privacy and boundaries. I keep saying it's temporary. My friend and her friends kept switching from nice to really terrible. At this point, they literally are sleeping in the same room as me. I wake up to them having sex occasionally. They even start waking me up randomly multiple times a night to do random tasks. My friend's boyfriend starts talking about how they're not really together anymore, and about how I'm so great for him, and blah blah blah. It's not long before he's telling me how I'm the one and everything. And unfortunately, he's really easy to fall for. He was the only one I was ever alone with the whole time. I wasn't ever even alone with my friend. Even worse, I'm really strangely good at meshing with other people. So I really fit everyone really nicely. And when her boyfriend was great, he was really great and would align really nicely. Because of this, I think he started to really believe his BS. 5 months in, all hell breaks loose. They stopped calling me by my name entirely and only called me gullible. Her boyfriend became really erratic after the first time I rejected him. They started creating planned drama to ambush me with. I'd even overhear them coming up with literal plans for the next day if I pretended to sleep. They were all really good at talking in weird loops and weird phrases. A few of them were demons. You're a demon. We're demons. We're terrible people. Be gullible. We are beautiful. And I have trust issues. They'd ask me constantly weird questions like, who are you? And are you keeping secrets? Over and over until I'd answer. They started recording me and trying to get me to embarrass myself in any way. They wouldn't let me leave, and I was exhausted all the time. They tried to convince me I was jealous of everything, and that I was a homewrecker. I was someone else entirely. That I hated all minorities of any kind. That I was a prostitute, and that I was even secretly a pedophile. The accusations and explanations were constant. They'd corner me into everything and openly take note of my reaction to absolutely everything. I started trying to escape, but they kept telling me they had information that they'd sent to everyone. I started getting the feeling everyone had heavy blackmail on each other. 6 months in, they threatened me. They called a friend over to scare me. He pretended to be a sex trafficker. I really started to freak out and I threatened to call the police. Everyone really started to change then. I had no energy. They started recording me, followed me to the shower, trying to seduce me constantly, making me afraid to eat, trying to convince me they had someone impersonate B to doctor evidence about me, and threatened me if I told anyone anything. Their random drama got incredibly elaborate. They'd invite friends over to trick me and humiliate me over anything. I'd even never know anybody's name. Strangers would watch me sleep. They'd attempt to convince me of absolutely anything, and they'd coordinate attacks to get a specific reaction. There were at least 8 people involved. A few times they figured how to get me to go into fits of rage, where I threatened them and have a full freakout. They recorded them and kept asking if I wished for retribution. If I hurt or embarrassed them in any way, they'd say that must be their atonement. They'd repeat my secrets back to me, and by then I'd given into a few regrettable demands, and they'd remind me of them. They kept suggesting that they created me in some way, and that I was in their dream, or I was a character in their plot. When I'd reach my breaking point, they'd get terrifyingly sweet. They'd pretend that they were helping me get repressed emotions out or giving me some sort of therapy. I even believed it out of exhaustion. Her boyfriend, who seemed to be the leader most of the time, started telling me I was finally becoming beautiful, but the second I rejected his advances, the abuse started full force. They kept asking if I wanted retribution. It was like they had unlimited time and energy, and I was always exhausted and in pain. I started to notice that their weird code words were actually working. I'd get an emotion or desire from them that I think was just too much. One night I just snapped and couldn't think. I just couldn't care. Nothing mattered, and I just walked out with less than shoes. I walked shoeless to my ex's parents' house, and he thankfully came to pick me up that night. So for the time being, I live with my ex again. It's been less than a month, and oddly, I just can't stop laughing about the whole thing. It really isn't funny to me, but I can't have a normal reaction to it. There's a lot I left out, so it's probably a bit rush sounding. I don't really know what to do, lol. 8 months with 3 deeply cruel individuals. They attempted to brainwash me, create multiple personalities, and refused to let me leave. The cult at Target. This incident just occurred a few hours ago, and it's still making my head spin. Forgive me if it seems lengthy, but an awful lot was said. My mother's sister and I were shopping in a local Target. As we strolled around, I recognized a girl named Stacy that I used to go to school with. For reference, I dropped out of high school my senior year, so I haven't been in my old high school or seen anyone from there for about a year now. I simply glance at her and keep on moving, doubting that she recognized me, because I haven't been in school for a year. A few minutes later, I'm on the complete opposite side of the store when I see this girl again. Like last time, our eyes awkwardly meet, and I try to just walk past her, but this time she actually said something. Hey, didn't we play tennis together? Stacy spoke with wide eyes and a painfully large smile. There was a girl standing next to her, but I didn't recognize her. I simply replied a yes in response. I was never friends with her in school. In fact, I never talked to her or even liked her. That's when she introduced herself, as if I completely forgot who she was. She goes on to question if I still went to high school, in which I explained that I graduated early with online classes. The conversation started out normal. I thought it was simply us catching up due to the fact that I had been absent from school. I kept wanting to cut the conversation short, but Stacy kept prodding about what was I doing now. Am I in college? And what was college like? Harmless questions, in fact. I didn't mind answering her questions. Then the conversation took an unexpected twist. Stacy somehow weaseled the conversation into one about God and Christianity. For reference, I do consider myself a Christian, but not one of those hardcore ones who are constantly spewing Bible quotes at strangers. She asks if I attended church, to which I responded with yes. Her eyes became even wider and her smile even bigger. Her old mantra of God sounded like this. Back in my high school days, I was always partying and being so happy, but that was all fake, and no one knew that I was actually pretty sad. That's when I found this church and showed me God's way, and his undying love. He accepted me and he'll accept you too. Now, I am always happy, for I have God on my side. And at this church, God truly appears before your very eyes. He cured me of all my physical and mental ailments, like when I messed up my knee in tennis. The whole time Stacy spoke, there was just a robotic tone about it, as if these words were memorized, practiced, and rehearsed. There was almost no genuine emotion in her, just wide eyes and a never failing smile. Then her friend Ashley began her speech. Keep in mind, my mother and sister are just an aisle away, waiting on me. Ashley's speech went like this. For a while in life, I suffered with depression and suicide. I was always faking to be happy until I found this church. This church truly opened my eyes and heart. I no longer feel dead inside. This is when she hinted that maybe I feel dead inside too, and the only way to recover from it is to look to God. Ashley also used the word zombie to describe this dead feeling, and that's when I began to really think that there's something wrong with these girls. Ashley continued on saying, I don't think it is a mere coincidence that we ran into you. God led me to you. He wanted me to reveal to you the way. God put a vision in my mind of you opening a present, and that present is our Lord and Savior. She kept on ranting how this is destiny that we met, and that God put Stacy and Ashley in my path to reveal himself to me. When Ashley mentioned depression and suicide, I could not help but to believe her for a slight second. I had been struggling with depression for years, but kept it quiet. And with me being a believer of God, I was almost fooled into thinking about this is a sign from God telling me to finally open up and get help. But when Ashley began to ramble about her church, that foolish hope I had dissipated quickly. Then the two moved the conversation onto their church. They kept stating that it was not a noble church and that God himself in flesh and blood came to them at the church. They informed me that God came to them to heal them of misery and grief. Ashley then pulled out a business card which had the church's email, a Bible quote, and her personal phone number. Before the anticipated departure, they kept saying how cool I am and that they are glad that they met me. Then we finally parted ways. I remember my legs being extremely weak when I walked away. That's when in mind it clicked. Are they a part of some cult? Their mannerism and behavior seemed too scripted to be real. That's when my sister found me and answered my suspicions. Apparently, before I had to endure that 10-minute chat with Stacy and Ashley, my sister overheard the girls were having the same conversation with another girl on the opposite side of the store. So this was all scripted, and it was their way of luring and persuading strangers to join their church. I realize now how they do it too, to reel me in to their discussion. They discussed about my absence from school and experience in college, to reel in the other girl they talked with. They started by complimenting her outfit and inquiring about her artistic hobbies. I wonder how many people they ended up talking to, and if they were just walking around the store hoping to find easy targets to talk to. I have so many questions, and that's what bothers me the most about this. And being the somewhat religious person that I am, their talk of God unnerved me. It is sort of humorous to think of now, simply because I think crazy God lovers are comical, and I'm still bewildered. If you have any information about how cults operate and how they coax people into joining them, please let me know. Does this incident sound like cult members trying to spread their message, or harmless teenage girls simply spreading the love of God? If you have any other questions about what occurred in my interaction with them, please ask. Also, it's possible that I will see Stacy again because she is attending my college next semester. Although Stacy and Ashley seemed harmless and just overly excited about God, I honestly hope we never meet again.
Well, my children, I thank you all for listening. I hope these scary stories about the cult frighten you. I will see you again very soon. So until then, love the darkness as it always and always will follow you.